More than 1,300 miles of shoreline surround the state of Florida. And here on the West Coast, sugar sand beaches are met with the blue-green waters of the Gulf of Mexico. It's a tropical lake escape for beachgoers, more than happy to soak up both the sun and surf, though likely unaware of a hidden danger lurking just below the surface. Eckerd College sits along Boca Ciega Bay, part of the intracoastal waterway that leads to the Gulf. A good spot, says Professor Shannon Gowans, to collect water samples.
So what we're trying to do is collect up 5 gallons of water and see what's in here.
There's a very good chance she'll find microplastics, an emerging contaminant that is showing up in oceans around the world. It happens when our trash, things like plastic bags and water bottles, make their way into bodies of water. Over time, that plastic breaks down into smaller pieces, by definition 5 millimeters or less. So small, Gowans must use a microscope to detect it. First, she adds fluorescent dye, then places the sample under the lens and turns out the lights. Thanks to the dye, the pieces that are plastic glow.
This is clearly a plastic piece, and again, we wouldn't be able to see that with our eyes. It's only when we can use that dye and being able to zoom in and see these really tiny plastic pieces.
Emphasis on the micro part, a major hurdle, says Gowans, when it comes to addressing the problem.
We can't remove them once they're there and in these small sizes. What we need to do is stop them from getting in the bay in the first place.
While research on microplastics is still relatively new, NOAA calls this kind of marine debris a menace, with the potential to negatively affect the food chain all the way up to humans. Yet another reason to stop it before it starts, especially when it comes to one of the biggest culprits, single-use plastics. So far, efforts have been mixed, with 10 states enacting statewide bans on single-use plastic bags. But nearly double that amount, 17, have what are known as preemptive laws on the books to stop even local municipalities from doing the same. That includes Florida, the very first state to do so back in 2008, essentially banning bans on plastic bags, and eventually polystyrene materials like styrofoam containers. Since then, attempts to change the law have been unsuccessful, including this year when bills filed in both the Senate and House died in committees. Senator Linda Stewart, who represents much of Orange County, is behind one of this year's versions and calls it a disappointment.
Local governments should have the ability to make decisions on their own.
There was, however, a smaller scale win in that regard back in 2019, when Republican Governor Ron DeSantis went against the GOP-run legislature and vetoed a bill to stop local governments from regulating yet another popular plastic, single-use straws. The decision allowed cities like St. Petersburg to move forward with ordinances to ban them, forcing restaurants to use substitutes like paper, an effort led by City Councilwoman Gina Driscoll.
Thank you.
At first, it was an adjustment, but now, more than 2 years later, she says the move helped create a culture of sustainability.
What we started with the simple straw is leading to a bigger conversation and more reflection on what part each person can play in environmental stewardship.
And people really do care. According to a report released by Florida's Department of Environmental Protection, 93% of Floridians surveyed believe regulating plastic bags and containers is necessary. And the majority of local governments want to do just that. The only problem is, their hands are tied.
We're not allowed to make local decisions about what's right for the environment and, really what's best for our planet.
Including all that surrounds Florida, from the Gulf of Mexico to the Atlantic Ocean. Beauty we must protect in order to keep. Kate McVeigh, Spectrum News.